I am diagnosed with endo, so something had to have happened, you know. I'm just Trickyy, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be discussing my endo journey. Now this is a bit different from my channel. I normally talk SBC stuff. However, I do have 13 plus conditions, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to incorporate all of them into my channel as well. And endo is something that I do suffer with, and in fact, while filming this, I am in an endo flare. You wouldn't think from looking at me, but I am on morphine and quite high pain levels. So yeah, if you're interested in my endo journey, so my endo journey, like thousands of other women, started with me being not listened to, and it was a very, very lengthy process, which is very common with endometriosis, unfortunately. I'm not sure if it's just because women aren't taken seriously, or we are just labelled you're too young, or you're too overweight, or you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that. There's always a reason for women's health issues that don't relate to women's health issues, if that makes sense. There's always like a backstory that they like to put on us, or it's like, you're a virgin, you're not a virgin, but we don't want to do this pap smear, but you know, you're too young. There's always something with endo, unfortunately. My endo journey really first started when I was about 17 years old. However, when I look back now, I probably was experiencing endo signs at about 16, 17. But when it came to gynecology, I was 17, and then yeah, I saw 6 before I saw my gynecologist that I still have now, so many years later. So all the gynae appointments aside, because obviously I did see 6, I was in and out of A&E. I mean, it was pretty constant with endo, unfortunately, and we had no idea what it was. I think that's the worst part for anyone. Back then I didn't even know what endometriosis was, and in fact I was pretty naive to women's health, and yeah, you know, you tell yourself it's not my problem until it's your problem, and it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately, you know, we all learn the hard way. These are very, very real things. Endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, like, they are very real conditions that affect so many women, and yet we're not taught about them, which is so sad, because we should be taught about them, both men and women. I say men as well, for the simple fact that if you are going to be with someone who has a female reproductive system, there is a chance that they will have polycystic ovary syndrome. There is a chance that they'll have endometriosis or endometriosis. At the end of the day, I think everyone should be given the tools to support whoever has it, whether it's your mum, your auntie, your sister, your niece, your girlfriend, your wife, your fiance, whatever they are. Like, this shit should be talked about. Like, it's not that taboo. Like, it's just blood. I think the other thing that is very important before I start going on to my journey is endometriosis is very much more than just a gynecological issue. That's such a difficult word to say, but yes, it's so much more than that. It is a full body issue. I mean, right now I have the worst leg pain, and I'm sure all my endo ladies would know what that means, and they'd be like, oh, it's horrible. It isn't just a gynecological issue. There's been cases where endo has been found on the diaphragm, on the lungs, even the brain. So it's definitely much more than what it's made out to be. It is definitely one of the most challenging conditions that I have, both physically and mentally, and I'll touch on the mental health side of endometriosis in a minute. But yeah, for now, let's just discuss my journey to being actually diagnosed with endo, because mine's slightly different than some ladies out there. But yeah, I'll tell you all about it now. So I was put through for my first lap, which is keyhole surgery. It's pretty much an exploratory lap. The only way to actually diagnose endometriosis is to have a laparoscopic surgery, which is insane in itself. Women literally have to sign pieces of paper to go in to be cut open in the chance that they will find this condition. Mad. And before people say, like, you can have an ultrasound, you could have a CT or MRI, whatever, like, that's great, but it doesn't always show endometriosis. It might show deep infiltrating, but it doesn't necessarily show endo in a hole. It isn't that simple. Unfortunately, it has to be diagnosed with a lap. So I went in for my first lap. I had not long turned 18, so I was very young. I think with my journey, it's important to say that I had an exploratory lap in the January of 2016. I went in with persistent lower left abdominal pain. It was literally constant. I ended up staying in hospital for a week. I ended up having an exploratory lap and they took my appendix. However, they did find that I had blood in my pelvis, which they put down to a ruptured ovarian cyst. However, I had an ultrasound in that week of me staying in a hospital, and I had an ultrasound 2 weeks beforehand and there was no cyst. So we don't really know what happened there. We suspect now that it was to do with endometriosis, but there's unfortunately no way of me really knowing that. It was just a general surgeon. It wasn't an endo specialised person. I don't even know what endo was. Endo was never mentioned before this. I hadn't even met a good gynaecologist. At this point, I didn't really know. I did, however, have a gynae appointment later on. In fact, I had several before this appointment that I ended up being put through for my first endo op. I say that like this. So my first meant to be excision op for endo, which is where I met my gynae surgeon, who I still have now. Love him to bits. He's absolutely incredible. He is endo specialised as well, so that's very good. That is very important to have an endo specialised gynae surgeon, which some people will be like, what do you mean? Like, a gynae surgeon is a gynae surgeon. No, an endo specialised surgeon is very important. There's the whole argument against ablation, which is where they burn it off, and excision, which is where they cut it out, and it's excision that you want to go with. But anyway, back to my story. I'm sorry, it's all over the place, but it's so hard to like piece together, but I'll try my best. So when I went for my first endo op, it was the June of 2016, so not too long after the first exploratory lap where they took my appendix and found the blood in my pelvis. In this op, they actually found nothing. They didn't find endo at all. This is my same gynae surgeon that I have now, keep that in mind. They found absolutely nothing. There was not one spot of endo that they could see. So when I woke up, you know, like, I was very upset, and I remember that this guy, and assuming he's a nurse, he literally turned around to me and went, well, what would you rather? They just cut it all out. And I mean, that haunts me to today, because obviously, you know, I am diagnosed with endo, so something had to have happened, you know. So in the 2016, I was given the all clear. I was actually misdiagnosed with premenstrual syndrome. Like many women before me were all diagnosed with something else. However, fast forward a couple of years, and two GPs actually were so adamant that I had endometriosis that they advocated for me. I was still seeing my gynae surgeon. I see him instead of a normal gynecologist, which I'm so grateful for. He is incredible and he does make time for me, even back then when he with his own eyes saw there was no endo. I did one appointment, hey, like, you know, you don't have endometriosis, you just have severe premenstrual syndrome, I'm gonna discharge you. And believe it or not, I was just like, look, no, please don't, can you just like hold on for a bit longer, you know, I don't think this is premenstrual syndrome, I'm not really sure. So luckily for me, and I am so lucky for this, he agreed to keep me on for one more like session. So like normally in England you get your, if you're lucky or not, I mean at the minute you don't get it anywhere near this close, but back then you got it every 3 to 6 months if it was emergency, 6 to 9 months if it wasn't emergency. So he agreed to keep me on, and in that time frame the GPs were just like so adamant that it was endometriosis. I'd seen several people in A&E, they were adamant it was endometriosis, like no one could understand it. I was showing clear signs of endometriosis. My gynae surgeon himself was like, look, I really don't understand it, but I've seen it with my own eyes, there's nothing there. So yeah, I actually, believe it or not, I discussed the first time I discussed my bladder issues was with my gynae surgeon. I'm that comfortable with him, and he's the one that actually referred me because he believed actually my bladder health was not okay whatsoever, and he got me my first urology appointment, which led to me having flow, my SBC. But anyway, so if you've got, moral to that story, if you have a surgeon or a doctor that you are comfortable with, you have a good relationship with, and you're kind of worried about something else, especially like gynae and bladder, like they're kind of related. So I literally went, look, I don't think this has anything to do with gynae, but like I'm having severe bladder issues, and from then, you know, I got help. So yeah, if you're comfortable with your doctor, GP, even if you're talking about something else, if you're worried about, like, for example, your bladder, bring it up. It's important. Okay, back to my endo journey. So yeah, he decided from seeing the GP's recommendation, his own like his own mind was telling him, look, something's not really quite right here. Like, it definitely looks like endo. I explained that I had an exploratory lap in the January, and obviously his op was in the June, so they were very close together, and he was like, right, okay, I'm starting to think maybe they actually did clean out endo then, which now we definitely think they did, and it went unrecorded, which is crazy. Skip to 2019 when I was put through for my second lap, which went a little different. I mean, the outcomes were a little bit different than the 2016. My pain was different. Everything was more localised to the left, which was the same as before. Everything was to the left. However, I started getting what I refer to as a tearing pain near my belly button, and it honestly feels like it's ripping inside. It's a very strange pain, but if you felt it, you know exactly what I mean. You'll be like, yes, oh my god, I have exactly the same, because it's so distinctive. Like, I've never felt anything like it before. Like, it couldn't be mistaken for anything, let's just put it that way. Yeah, so I'd had all these new symptoms, which when I think back now, there weren't that many new symptoms. Like, now I'm in a very bad position. But anyway, I discussed all this with him, and he was like, look, I'm convinced we're going to find endo, but at the same time, you know, he'd already seen that there was none there in the 2016, so he was like, I'm not really sure, but, you know, we'll double check. Which doesn't happen, unfortunately, for a lot of women, which is so sad, but all I can do is be thankful that it did happen for me. So I went in for my technically second lap for endometriosis in 2019. It was the March of 2019. When I woke up, I was in a lot more pain, so I instantly knew something was different. I did ask one of the nurses, like, they were trying to talk to me about my observations and stuff. My oxygen was a little bit low, etc. And they were trying to get pain under control, and I remember just asking, did you find endo? Like, you know, when you wake up, that's all you want to know, because there's no way of knowing beforehand. And she said, yes, they found endo, and I remember immediately feeling relief, in a weird sense. Anyone who has endometriosis, anyone who's been through this process will understand what I mean by relief. Like, it's a really weird thing to have relief for finding a condition that cannot be cured. That is, no offence to the devil. I don't think there's any other word for endo. However, not knowing what is wrong with you, but knowing something is mentally traumatizing. Like, it is so tormenting. It's horrendous. So that is what I felt straight away, was relief. And then instantly I was like, where is the endo? Because, you know, I very much want to be a mum. I try and say this without being emotional. I do want to be a mum. So for me, my ovaries, fallopian tubes, all that sort of thing, like, that's where I definitely didn't want endo found. Obviously I didn't want it found anywhere, but if it was going to be there, I didn't want them in that areas for obvious reasons, to do with fertility. This poor nurse is still trying to get me to, like, you know, breathe and have pain controlled and all this sort of thing. I just continued to ask, where was the endo? Where was the endo? Was it on my ovaries? Where was the endo? And she went, yes, it was on one of your ovaries. And that is all that I knew at that point, and I just remember sobbing. It's horrible to like relive these things, but I hope like someone else feels less alone from me reliving it. It's very raw at the minute because I'm waiting for my technically second excision surgery, but third op for endo. So it's very, very raw, unfortunately. But yes, I ended up leaving recovery and I found out that they found endo on my left ovary and left abdominal wall. Funnily enough, one of the first things I thought about when I found out about it being on my ovary was, the first thing I thought honestly was my Scott, which is my partner, who I've been with nearly 7 years, and I instantly thought about him. You know, we're only young. I'm 24 now, but I was 20, 21 back then, and Scott is 25 now, but he would have been about 22. So, you know, we were very, very young. And you do have to think about fertility with endometriosis. Like, I don't think people realise this. It's not just when you're told you 100% have issues with infertility that you think about it. You start thinking about children straight away when you hear about endometriosis. If you want to have children, you definitely think about, look, like, what are my options here? My Scott was definitely the first thing I thought about, and then I sobbed for ages, and I mean I sobbed. And then I pulled myself together because I knew my mum was in the waiting room downstairs, and then I instantly thought, like, oh, I don't know how to tell my mum. Little did I know, my surgeon actually rang my mum and she found out before I did. But I know that they were very emotional. My grandparents actually ended up coming to the hospital, and so did my little brother. So when I came round from recovery to Channel Day, that's where I went at the time, they were all there. I apologise for the birds in the background. But yeah, they were all there, and yeah, my mum was like, oh, do you know? And I was like, yeah, I know. But to some people this probably sounds like so dramatic, but do you know what? It is very mentally challenging. It's a very real part of endometriosis, unfortunately. You know, mental health comes alongside it, and not a lot of women talk about that, and I think it's very sad because I know that I personally struggle mentally from endometriosis a lot more than I do for medical device. I would say it's definitely one of the most challenging conditions that I have that has affected my mental health 100%. It's not easy. It's not easy to live in a world where women's health is not seen as a priority. And I know that's probably hard for men to understand, but honestly, I could go into A&E with 10 out of 10 pain and I won't even get a paracetamol. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's true. And, you know, it's hard. The shit is hard sometimes. Like, it's hard to live with. It's hard to kind of think about all these things that you have to think about way before you would need to think about them on a normal, like, with a normal, healthier body. Like, children, for example, I think about children 24/7, and some days I can walk past the baby aisle and I catch my breath and then I carry on walking and I'm fine, and some days I literally have to fight off tears. Like, it is horrible. Me and Scott went from picking baby names 6 to 9 months into our relationship to we barely talk about it now because it's hard. Like, it is hard to even think about some days. The possibility of infertility is a huge thing and it should be spoken about. It's not an ugly word, it's just painful. Now with my endo journey. So after my op, a year after my op, I started Zoladex. Unfortunately, I failed Zoladex, which some people would be like, what do you mean? So I started with a trial of Zoladex, which involves 3 injections over 3 months, which Zoladex aids in shutting down your ovaries. In a sense, it is a type of menopause, but it's a menopausal state made by medication, so e.g. you can come out of it majority of the time. I know some people struggle a bit, however I didn't. I didn't struggle to come out of the menopausal state because the injections did not work for me at all. So not to scare anyone off Soladex, because we are all completely different. Every woman's body is different, so this makes this a bit tricky. So for me with Soladex, a bit like the Depo jab, I bled 10 times heavier. I was having constant periods and spotting in between. I mean, I still get that on my normal periods, but it was like to an extreme. I actually had a breakdown of vaginal tissue, which to some people would be like, wait, what? I would wipe TMI. I mean, this channel is all like, we don't do TMI here, we do real life shit. So if TMI offends you, I'm sorry, this is not the channel for you. Please find a different one. I say that lightly because, you know, like, I'm very real. I will tell you as it is, and this is a very real experience of mine. So I would wipe and my skin would literally come off. This was within 2 lots of the injections. So my GP was kind of like, right, we'll start a cream. It couldn't be an estrogen based cream, I think that's how we say it, because that could encourage endometriosis to grow vaginally, which is mad. Like I said, endo has a mind of its own that we don't even fully understand yet. So she did end up writing to my GP, and he was like, right, we're stopping straight away, we're not going any further, and he decided to cancel them completely. So Zoladex was out the window. The contraceptive pill I don't agree with, for many reasons that I won't go into, and the Depo jab again didn't work for me. I was still having periods, so I am one of them unfortunate people that does not have a lot of medical options. I have surgical options. So at this point, my gynecologist, I mean, we were quite a bit into, I think it was nearly into 2 years. We just post endo op. So we decided to do a 3rd endo op / 2nd excision op. However, COVID hit. So I ended up, and I still am, waiting, but my symptoms have dramatically changed. I'll touch on them quickly now. So I ended up starting to get nosebleeds out of just one nostril, literally a day or 2 before my period. It happens every time, and it's happened for like 12 to 15 cycles now. I mean, it's been going on a long time. I get lung pain now, to the point I have to take my asthma pump. I don't only have left side pain, I have right side pain, I have the tearing of the belly button pain, both sides. I mean, the list goes on. I am obviously waiting for a loop ileostomy now, and we're not sure if it's necessary to do with endo. However, my bowel is definitely struggling. I guess you could say it could be due to with endo, but it's also to do with my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and GI dysmotility, etc. What else is up with me? So honestly, there's so much. Does anyone find themselves saying that? What is up with me now? So when I'm due on, I get urgency even with flow, which is my suprapubic hafter. I bleed around my SPC site when I'm due on, so it's normally like a day or 2 before my period. That is very new. That's only been the last 2 periods. My gynecologist doesn't even know about that bit yet. I have to tell him. So pretty much I've had my pre-op. I am waiting for my lap. It was meant to be December. We are now the 20th of December, so it's definitely not happening in December. My surgery is actually is suspected to be very big at this point, so I've decided to vlog it as much as I can. My gynecologist is all for education, so I'm sure that he won't mind. I obviously have to take into account what they want shown and what they don't want shown, but as much as he will let me show, I will show for the sake of education, because education brings awareness, and I fully believe that think awareness, not attention. So yeah. My surgery is actually going to be a double surgeon surgery. Endo specialised surgeons have not met the other surgeon. One is my surgeon, one is another surgeon. Obviously, on my pre-op notes, as I've already had my pre-op and I've decided to vlog it since having my pre-op, otherwise I would have took you along with that. I have on my pre-op notes, if I can find the screenshot I will put it here. It pretty much says excision surgery for endometriosis, and then says plus or minus, which just means because they don't know at the minute. Rectal shaving, stents, which is for your ureters that come down from your kidneys that go to your bladder. So stents in them. And that's it for the minute, I do believe. But I have been told, for example, that the anaesthetic team, which is anaesthesiologists if you're not in the UK, they believe that I cannot have the op on a weekend just in case I need some special help, so e.g. ICU, high dependency, all that sort of stuff, which is very nervy to hear. However, I'm finding myself questioning myself. Obviously, my first endo op, they didn't find anything, so I always have this worry that they're not going to find anything, which worry sounds like a weird word, but I'm one of them people like I feel guilty for wasting their time, even though it's not wasting their time at all. It would be a fucking miracle for them not to find anything. But yeah, I would definitely bring everyone along who wants to come along for that. I will also film a what's in my hospital bag video with a special bit for what medical device stuff am I bringing, because obviously I do have Flo will be coming, she has to. So my endo journey is definitely not completed. I don't think it will ever be completed in a sense, you know, like it's an incurable condition that I will have for the rest of my life, and unfortunately I just have to try and manage as best as I can. Yeah, I will be discussing stuff like, I do believe it's called an AMH, which is your fertility levels, getting all of that worked out for my own mental health, because, you know, endometriosis is very hard for any woman, but for a woman who desperately wants to be a mum, and I wanted to be a mum for a very long time now. I mean, I'm only 24, I'm still very young, but it's very hard when you feel like you have a clock that you can't even see the result. Obviously for me as well, when it comes to having children, I do have a lot of conditions, so you know I am a high risk candidate, unfortunately. But yeah, that is a very narrowed down version of my endo journey. I probably missed out 101 bits because it is so long, it is complicated, and it can be difficult to talk about. But you know, we roll, we get up and we carry on. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like down below and subscribe. I will be doing a whole video on my endo surgery, which again is my third endo surgery but my second excision endo surgery, and I will take you along to as much of it as I possibly can. So until next time, think awareness, not attention.